Oh dear. Right. So I just wanted to mention something about people's opinions and advice on YouTube. Um, a lot of people, not everybody, but some people are very biased. Bias is a huge problem when it comes to making the right decision for what you want to use a computer for. And so there are certain people who are avid, die hard. You know, they'll cling on with their fingernails at all costs to specific types of operating systems such as Windows. And the same applies to people who have been using Linux for many, many years. So what you've got to do when you're looking on the internet, when you come across YouTube channels, other channels that might be recommending a specific operating system and they attack the other operating systems, you've got to be aware that sometimes it's bias that's causing them to be like that, because it's not always what's best for you. Because ultimately, if you want an operating system and your main use of the operating system is simply to browse the internet, then I would suggest don't use Windows, simply put, because it's ever since I've been around for a long time. I was born in 1959. I'm not going to lie about it. And when Windows came out, back then we had lots of viruses on floppy disks, and that's how viruses used to spread around. And from my experience, my personal experience, in all those years, Windows has never once been without problems. It's always had problems. And usually they patch one problem and create another problem, and then you have a string of problems, right? It's always been the buggiest thing out there, right? I don't hear many stories about people on Macintoshes. Macintosh computers seem to have a good reputable status. I've never used a Mac, so I can talk with an unbiased opinion because I've never used a Mac, because I can say that Macs are quite good even though I've never used one. And why don't I use one? It's because they're expensive, right? Bottom line, I can't afford it, right? But if you've got the money and you want to spend your money on a Macintosh, then go ahead, because I've not heard anything really bad about them. Of course, they've probably got problems that I'm not aware of. But yeah, you always end up with some kind of problems. But if you just want to use a computer for internet, and I would recommend Linux, simply, bottom line. Linux was a branched off system that came, I believe, from Unix. Unix, UNIX, I think it was an operating system that was primarily used for businesses in the 80s and in the early days. Really, you're going back a long time before we even had the internet. So Unix came out very early on. It's a very, very mature operating system, is Unix. And you can go online and do a search for the evolution of Unix and Ubuntu and Linux. Go and search for the branch trees. Go and search for the branch architecture of Unix and Linux. Go and search for it. Just find it. Look for the maps and it will show you this great big tree, how it all branched up into all these different operating systems. And you'll find out that Unix is older than Windows. It's a lot older than Windows. Trust me, it's very old, right? It's got a lot of safeguards built into it. But I tell you what really annoys me is when you get some guy who's an avid Windows user that will repeatedly tell you that something in Linux is bad, and he'll keep saying it's bad, or this is bad, and he'll say it 3 or 4 times. Why? It's because he's biased, right? I'm not going to say any names, but it really annoys me because, come on, Unix, Linux, it's got a history. It's proven itself over and over again to be one of the best operating systems out there. The only time you get a security flaw with Linux is when somebody installs it, right? If somebody deliberately puts it there because they've got some ulterior motive, some kind of agenda. Anyway, I'll try and dig out this map for you and stick a link in the description. But you've got to learn the history. You've got to find out. You've got to dig out and dig out the history and look at it and see it for what it is. Windows is a child compared to Unix and Ubuntu and Linux. Windows is a spoilt brat basically that throws up tantrums every 5 minutes, right? And I'm not saying that from any bias. I'm saying that from personal experience. I have all the time I've known Windows, it's been a pain in my backside, right? Always. End of rant.